Would you rather own 100% of a little grape or 10 to 30% of a massive watermelon? Welcome to the Nine Doors Down Show, where we discuss anything and everything about commercial real estate and investing. Let's get it.
Nine Doors Down.
John Lopez.
Nine Doors Down.
Hi, this is Tony Rose.
Nine Doors Down.
Hi, this is Anthony Pimentel.
Educating, capital raising, networking.
Nine doors down. Nine doors down.
Just call the show!
What's up, everyone? Again, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Nine Doors Down Show. Man, Anthony, I'm super excited for today's guest, man.
Yeah, glad to see Moses on here. I haven't seen him in a while, but it's good.
Yeah. You know, this guy Moses, man, like, you know, we've only known him for maybe almost a year now, but I feel like we've done an eternity of things with Moses already in this short time span.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think I got to move out to Vegas already. I mean, you guys got so much activity out there with all the meetups and all this networking. It's pretty cool.
Yep. So here's a little brief background on our buddy Moses. So Moses, he is a partner and acquisitions analyst for Aviana Capital Group, an entrepreneur and a real estate investor. Moses is currently a general partner in over 600 units. I think it's well over 600 units at this point of large multifamily properties with a strong background in finance and lending with Southwind Financial. He began his investing career in Las Vegas with fix and flips on single family and small multifamily properties, which then led to his commercial journey in 2017. He quickly became the lead acquisitions and lead underwriter for Nationwide Multifamily Group based here in Las Vegas. So all our listeners, please give the Shakespeare of Multifamily a big round of applause. Moses Lucero.
That is a super awesome introduction. It's probably the best one I've ever been a part of. But yeah, thanks guys, man. I'm super grateful to be on this. I'm really happy you guys started a podcast. When I heard about it, I was like, yes, this is what Nine Doors can do, man. They can do a podcast and they can do it well. But I appreciate you guys having me on, man.
We appreciate you for hopping on with us. And you know, Moses, the reason why we decided to just launch a podcast, because Anthony and I are on Zoom calls, at least 4 to 8 calls every single day. And not a day went by when I was like, man, that could have been a great podcast episode with all the nuggets that are shared.
Yep.
So that's why we're here. And it's, you know, it's very cost effective and a lot of people could gain a lot of value from our guests, especially you, my brother.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, I'll try to spout out what I do know and things I've been through for sure. So
yeah. And we're gonna reverse engineer this compared to like our previous episodes. I want to get your contact info out of the way. Okay. Where can people find you? What's a good social media, website, and email?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the best ways to reach out either to myself or my partner, Rich, you can go to avianacapgroup.com. That's avianacapgroup.com. You can reach out to me at moses@avianacapgroup.com. Instagram is Moses S. Lucero, and then Moses Lucero, through Facebook. But all my contact information's out there. If you guys, I check all platforms all the time too, so I'm pretty easy to get a hold of.
Perfect. So I'm glad we got that out of the way. So now let's go into your story, Moses. Tell us a little bit about your background growing up. Where did you grow up? Where did you end up going for school? Just the basic stuff.
Yeah, man. So born in Farmington, New Mexico. I didn't grow up there very long. My parents moved to Utah, so Park City, Utah. They opened a few restaurants. So my parents were business owners, entrepreneurs by spirit. So, they opened a couple of restaurants in Utah, sold them off and retired, came to Vegas. I was still in high school when they moved out to Las Vegas. I would call Vegas my most meaningful years. Because, I was in that high school phase, getting into a young adult life, trying to figure out life, career paths, all that stuff. I got into banking at a pretty early age. I worked for Bank of America. I was their private investment banker for quite some time. When the economy hit in 2008, they kind of gave someone my job and paid them half my salary. I was let go. So I kind of went back to the service and hospitality industry because that's kind of in my blood. My parents did restaurants. I grew up in the restaurant. So I did, I bounced around from restaurant to restaurant, from bar to bar, did, bar management, restaurant management. And then I got the real estate bug, just like just about everybody else. And I was like, man, I hear people killing in real estate, the whole wholesaling, fixing and flipping. And I got into that. So I did a number of wholesaling deals, fix and flipping on small apartments and single family homes. And then it kind of dawned on me as like, man, I'm chasing another paycheck every time I close a deal, right? It's just that it's very active. Like you got to be hunting and, always trying to get another deal under contract, trying to outbid your competitor. So I started started talking and asking people around, like, what can I do to get in the commercial space? Because, commercial people make good wealth. You can make good money in single family, but you make wealth in commercial. And since people start talking about syndications and, grouping money together and buying large assets, I'm like, man, I need to figure out how to do that. So fast forward a little bit. There was a multifamily investment firm in Las Vegas that they had 5,000 units under management. So I basically went to the guy who owned the place and I said, hey man, like, you don't know me, I don't know you, but I'm going to show you my commitment. I want you to just teach me whatever you're willing to teach me. So basically I became the coffee boy, lunch boy. I interned for them. I wasn't getting a paycheck. So I was, it was my drive to just show up to the office and just not be in the way, but just be a fly on the wall. After about a year, he basically said, hey man, let's show you how to do some underwriting. And, so I became kind of like their intern underwriter. I would just reach out to brokers, get financials, gather them, and I send them to the acquisitions department. And I started catching on pieces of how they would read financials, your T12 and your rent roll. And basically I started practice underwriting for another year, and I ended up becoming their lead acquisitions analyst. So I underwrote all their deals from A to Z, from, all the way to acquisition to disposition. Because you don't just underwrite the deal at the beginning of the process, close the deal, and then that's it. You're consistently underwriting that deal as well post-close, because you go through your annual quarterly budgeting and you have to readjust your numbers to make sure you're on par for your pro forma. And so underwriting never dies once you buy the deal. It actually gets harder, and you have to make sure you maintain it as you own the deal. And so there's a lot of nuances that I believe that, when people get into this space, underwriting is a foundational piece. I don't care if you don't like spreadsheets or if you don't like numbers, at least understand the basics and the fundamentals, because if you're out there raising equity, you better know what you're pitching. You better know what you're selling. And you better have a strong team that asset manages with you, because they are in the numbers on a monthly, quarterly, yearly basis to make sure that asset's maintaining the right course for disposition. So that's kind of that's kind of where it went for there. I went on a soapbox there but after working for Nationwide Multifamily for a little while, a really good friend of mine, I've known him for Rich. I've known him for, 15 years probably.
Shout out to Rich.
Yeah. And he reached out to me randomly. He's like, hey man, I've known him for a while. He moved out to Dallas. He just reached out to me randomly. He's like, hey man, what have you been up to? And we just kind of chatted it up. And I said, hey, I'm a lead underwriter for this company, blah, blah, blah. And at this time, Rich he has a very extensive single family portfolio that he self-managed. And I'm like, man, that's crazy. How do you do that? I'm like, how do you have time to manage that many single family properties? Like, you know what, dude, I'm looking to try to get in commercial too. So, long story short, we just basically joined forces, created Aviana Capital Group, started looking at deals together, and then we just started doing deals as partners. And that's kind of where we're at today.
Welcome to the course on raising capital for investments. In this course, we'll cover the following topics. 1, analyzing your investment strategy. Number 2, discovering potential investors. 3, crafting your pitch. 4, securing your investment. 5, our cheat code. We'll round out the program with our very own cheat code for getting in front of investors and being ready to pitch your investment opportunities. Take action today. Visit schoolofninedoorsdown.com and learn to attract capital.
so the proximity with Rich was always under your nose.
Always, man.
The stars just had to line up.
Always. Yeah. No, and it's funny because, you know, from Rich's side, he's like, yeah, dude, I was going through, he was going through I don't want to say it's like a company course or something like that, but he's like, part of the course was like, I had to reach out to everybody in my phone book, in his phone book, reach out to him, even though I haven't talked to him in years, just reach out to him. And that's how we kind of reconnected, because we haven't spoken for probably 2 or 3 years prior to that conversation. So, but yeah, it was weird. Like you said, the alignment was there, and he reached out and we hit it off like we never left off. So it was pretty cool. Now we talk every day, just like you and Anthony.
Hey man, that's a great story.
Yeah.
What do you think you learned a lot from basically that underwriting? Like you're working with like an experienced company that's underwriting these large deals. I mean,
yeah.
Tell us what you learned from how they look at deals compared to how you started.
That's a good question. So when I was first kind of shadowing, you know, you in the single family space, you underwrite things obviously quite a bit different than, you know, multifamily. But the first thing I noticed was it's not too much harder. You're just accounting for more doors under one roof. Yeah, there's more things you have to pay attention to. I mean, obviously your expenses, you definitely pay close attention to the expenses when you're acquiring the property. And then obviously once you acquire, but you know, it's a lot of attention to detail. When you're getting financials from a seller, you're really, really paying attention to the trends month over month. You're paying attention to their trends, how they've been performing as far as an income growth, and as far as their expenses been growing. And you're paying attention to a lot of these line items that maybe stick out to you, maybe seem a little off. And also with the rent roll, man, you're paying attention to just kind of the demographic, the tenant base, the jobs. What are the majority of the jobs of the residents that live on your property, the lease expiration. So it's basically magnified on a larger scale. It's just it's more detail oriented. That's the first thing I noticed, because the details can ruin your business plan if you don't pay attention. Single family, I mean, there's still underwriting involved if you're trying to acquire for like a rental portfolio, but I've noticed you have to be very, very detailed and meticulous on how you look at things and how you underwrite things. It's not much harder if you are, you know, disciplined in that, but yeah, it's really just making sure that you're crossing your T's and you're dotting your I's when you're looking at these financials. So
that's great, Moses. Man, so going back to you and Rich, like how is the marriage so successful? Like what's the synergy like between you guys?
You know, that's another good question. I almost want to say it's personality types, right? When you're starting a business or you're going into a partnership, it literally is a marriage. You know, we jokingly say, like, I talk to Rich more than I talk to my wife sometimes, and it truly is like it's a partnership that you have to consider as a long term, right? You can't just think it's a transactional thing, because, you know, ups and downs, we're both going through the same thing. And so personalities are very important. Like, how do you guys act under pressure? When things need to be done or fires need to be put out, how do we both react to the situation? Kind of just when things get hard or pressure's, you know, really strong, you know, how do we not freak out, panic? We just stay calm and just figure out a solution or be creative with solutions. But, you know, it's synergies have to be aligned for sure. Personalities have to be aligned for sure. And then kind of just what is the goal? Are our goals aligned? Do we have the same goals? What are our morals? What do we believe in? You know, it's just all that really does take into consideration. And all those things you kind of have to really understand. I think what made me and Rich so successful is that we've been friends for so long before, and we've always had a very like cliquey personality. Like, we just got each other. Like, I can understand him without even saying a word. You know, it's kind of like that. It's almost like a brotherhood. But I think that's what made us successful. And people will sometimes say, well, don't ever go into business with your best friend. But I would argue that I think going into business with your best friend, like a true best friend, is probably one of the best things you do, because they will have your back when times get tough. Like they will, and they'll fight along with you. So, but yeah, I think, the relationship is a huge piece. I always preach, if you're getting into a partnership, anybody, man, really get to know that person. What are they about? What's their family life? What's their personal life? What do they do when they're not working? Like, pay attention to that stuff, because their image reflects off to your image too.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
I think, as far as the Aviana and the 9 Doors Down side, like, I think it's safe to say that we're very fortunate that we partnered up with very good friends, right?
Yeah.
But what advice would you give to someone that's, that's going to a meetup, or, for example, they're going to Passive Wealth Through Apartments. And for those that don't know, Passive Wealth Through Apartments is co-hosted by Moses and Andy and Francis from Kaya and Gail from XYZ. But in my opinion, man, it's probably the strongest multifamily meetup that's going on here in Las Vegas. Now, say we're just talking to that crowd, like, how can you get people to open up their eyes to partnership opportunities with people that they've only met for like 15-20 minutes? You may not distinguish if they're partners within those first 15-20 minutes, but how do you lay the groundwork to maybe it is a potential relationship?
That's a real good question. And also shout out to you guys. You helped make that meetup possible, along with XYZ and Kaya, man. I couldn't do it without them. But I think when you're going into a meetup or a conference or some kind of networking setting, I think you just kind of have to be yourself, man. Don't try to be anybody you're not. Don't try to magnify yourself to some person that you're really not, really. So when you go out to a meetup or a conference, just put yourself out there. Be comfortable just talking about whatever. It doesn't have to be real estate related. You could talk about sports. You could talk about what's going on. Talk about the market. But just put yourself out there, and you kind of have that gut feeling when you're talking to somebody. If you feel like they could be a good fit to your team, or you feel like you could possibly see yourself doing business with them. It's just that natural instinct, really, to really understand, like, and I would say it's 20-30 minute conversation. Isn't it enough? Like, get to know the person the first round, in the next meetup, if you run into them again, pick up where you guys left off, continue that conversation. I feel like you need to be sure that your goals and your ambitions are aligned with that person you meet. It's dating. It really is dating. So get to go on a couple dates, not literally, but figuratively. You every time you see the person that meet them, it's another date. You strike another conversation, you get to know them a little bit more. But that's huge. It's making sure your personality is aligned with theirs. And, it's, as you get to know someone a little more, you can kind of ask tougher questions, have a little bit more real conversations, talk about the downfalls of real estate, mistakes you've made with this person. And when you mention these, like, for instance, like if I talk to someone about my mistakes and the things I've done wrong in real estate, I kind of pay attention to see how they would react. Do they have an input? Do they have, how do they react to my situation? Are they like, oh man, that sucks? Or like, man, that's crazy. Have you thought about doing this? Or if they ask those questions, like, what did you learn from that? Then I'm like, okay, this person's thinking a little bit more creatively and they're actually engaged. And so, but yeah, I think definitely it's dating.
Yeah, I truly agree with that. Cause I gotta say, like, in my first business, I mean, I gotta admit this, because I was really like a hands-on guy. Like, I want to be the one that does everything, make the decisions, you know what I mean?
Right.
And it's like kind of giving that control. But I learned a lot in my first partnership, is just take a step back and really listen, you know what I mean? And then just kind of open up in a way where, you don't have to be the one making all the decisions, see from a different perspective. And I think that's a great point.
Yeah, man. And it's like, and I really believe if you go in and just be yourself, man, just be yourself and who you are and what you represent. You don't always have to put on a front. Like, the more you meet a person, the more you find out their true self, because people go to these networking events and they kind of have this facade of themselves. And so when you start talking to them more and you have these calls or you see them at other conference, you start to see, like, you're changing a little bit, your true personality. And it's sometimes not a bad thing. Sometimes you see the true personality comes out. But if you were yourself day one, they will always look at you the same since day one. And they will also look at you as like, this guy's real, man. This guy's honest. He's got good morals. It doesn't matter if it's the first time I met him or the 100th time I met him. He's always been the same guy. Right.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I would have to agree with that hardcore. And like for the listeners, I'll tell a story of like how I met Moses. So it was a meetup that I was hosting out here in Las Vegas called Commercial Collaborators. And during the meetup, I actually didn't bump into Moses. It was actually afterwards. And I realized this because that large group photo of Moses, you're actually in the very front. I didn't realize that that night. But while we're all like walking out to the cars, you know, we Moses and I kind of bumped into each other. I see Moses all, you know, he's got a suit and tie. He's looking super professional, right? So, you know, my ignorant self, I'm thinking like, okay, I'm thinking like a certain personality of like how I'm gonna conduct my talk track and my tone and body language and so on and so forth. But that conversation, I remember it revolved around cannabis. Around cannabis farming, but it was around investments.
Yeah.
And then that's when it was a lesson for myself. I was like, I really cannot prejudge anyone literally just by how they look. You not regardless if they're just wearing sweats or wearing a tie. It's just that it's that look in a person's eye, like when they look at you and like and how they speak, and you could sense that the genuine passion and also just eagerness to learn about something. But what struck me with Moses was he was brainstorming with me on how cannabis operators store their cash and how they have to keep buying businesses to deploy that cash into. But he already had the investor mindset, and that sparked it with me from day one with Moses.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, we all know, just, you know, the cannabis is for an example. They've got a cash problem, right? And so who can help bring a solution? That's where the opportunities are, is when you create a solution to their people's problems. So always thinking that with the investor mindset, look at the situations like, how can I get into this? You know, how can I bring other people into this venture with me, and what can we offer to help remedy the problem? You know, so creating creative solutions is how I look at things a little bit. So
yeah, I love that, man. Let's go into asset management, man. You know, underwriting, asset management, definitely Moses' strengths. How has things shifted since 2021? Just in the last couple of years, as far as operating the properties, COVID and all.
Man, I'll tell you right now, just in the last 6 months, things have just drastically changed. The last 12 months, I mean, you don't even have to go back that far, but it's changed. The environment has changed quite a bit, and not just on the asset itself, but the entire environment, the debt side, the equity side, it's pivoting. Debt's getting a little bit more stricter. They are very picky on what deals they want to lend on. Obviously, we all know the interest rates have kind of did their crazy thing. They may continue to keep doing their crazy thing. Equity is getting a little bit, I don't want to say scared, but it's getting a little more reserved. So, and opportunities they're starting to show themselves a little bit more. Like I mentioned earlier, we had a portfolio in Georgia came back to us, you know, and it's a 25% discount from when we underwrote it 3 months ago. So the debt has a huge influence on how pricing goes. And I even scratch the surface with, you know, taxes and insurance, right? Depending on what state you're in, insurance killed a lot of people. In any coastal market, it's hemorrhaging a lot of deals. So you have a lot of different combinations, a lot of these variables that are just beating up on operators sometimes. And it's just, and also, even the debt. I mean, if you go back 3 years, I mean, look at all the debt, the type of debt that was put on these properties, a lot of floating rate bridge stuff. And so it's all now starting to come into this weird, perfect storm where we'll see who was prepared, right? We'll see what boat lasted the storm. So as far as asset management goes, it's definitely changed the environment. Like we are super hyper focused on operations. We are very detailed in looking at our budget, our expense line items. We want to make sure we're running in as lean and as efficient as possible. Because you guys know, we have a property down in South Texas near the coast. So a property like that, we are very, very focused on the operations. What are ways we can generate additional revenue without, pissing off the tenant or resident so much, but we're looking at other avenues to create other income while really trying to shave down the expenses. But it's changed quite a bit, for us looking at deals, any potential deals. Well, I mean, our underwriting criteria has kind of shifted a little bit, even in the class. I mean, we've kind of turned away from a certain class type now because lending's a little different. And so they really dictate how you look at deals, for sure, how you underwrite deals, what kind of debt can you afford to put on the deal. And then when you start getting the pref equity side, you're basically, you're dancing to their song, right? They have now shifted the type of assets they're willing to put their money in. So you have to be really cognizant and aware of what people are looking for now, because they're the class C value add. There's still money to be made, but your partners are now more meticulous on those types of deals. So just paying attention to what people are talking about, and have good connections with not just other investors, but have a good relationship with your lender broker, have a good relationship with a handful of real estate commercial brokers, have a good relationship with your commercial insurance. Like, have these guys, talk to these guys often, because they have different pulses on different avenues that help your operations. And then, obviously stay in contact with your property management company, because they are telling you what's going on in that market. Also, that they can also let you know about deals that are potentially struggling and possibly need to sell too. So
that's huge.
That is very huge. I feel like property management companies are underrated as far as finding deals. If you have a good relationship with a property management company, they'll tell you, hey, XYZ property on Main Street, they're suffering a little bit. I think they're trying to position themselves for a disposal, and you got first insight, right? So yeah, it's just paying close attention to the areas of expertise. Don't feel like you have to know it all, ask questions. And just like I said, having a good broker lender, they will always keep you up to date on what's going on in the market, where debt's heading, what kind of products are still available. So yeah, it's being aware of those variables.
Right. Like I guess in regards to asset management, with the margins being so tight with, high expenses, higher debt, like, have you guys noticed more communication with your property managers on a weekly basis or monthly? I'm not sure how many times you guys do it a month, but are you working with them, collaborating with them to kind of get through this tough times? Because, it's trending. There's times it's trending, with vacancies going up, there's more units coming up in the market. So it's kind of nuts. So being on top of that is really key.
Yeah, man, that's a fantastic point. So typically regardless of the market with us at Aviana, upon stabilization, so when you acquire a property, we do weekly phone calls with our on-site and our regional manager. Because takeover is it's a very important piece to your business plan, right? Well, as soon as you get the keys and you're in with your team and you're assessing the units, the CapEx, and you're really getting a deep dive of the property you just acquired. Yeah, we're on weekly phone calls without a doubt, maybe hour and a half. And we discuss operations, we discuss project management, we discuss just about everything. Once we get closer to a stabilization, we may do a bi-weekly call. We'll do a bi-weekly call unless the occupancy falls below a certain benchmark, and then we're back to weekly calls, right? Because economic occupancy is huge to us. It's part of your business plan. You have to maintain that. But if it's in a good spot, and it's humming along and operations seem to be running well, we'll do a bi-weekly call. But it will go back and forth, right? If we feel like we need to jump back to a weekly call, we will. It almost feels like it's maybe like a seasonal thing, because obviously in the multifamily world, residents don't move as much during the holidays or the slower season. So if your occupancy sits at a certain place, we have to figure out creative ways to get on a weekly call to say, hey, we need to bump up the occupancy a little bit, or what can we do to kind of entice prospects to come and visit our property to sign leases. So it ebb and flows with the seasons, and ebb and flows with your business plan. And it just ebb and flows with the overall property of where you're at that current moment. So upon acquisition, So through stabilization, weekly calls. Once we get a good place and the property is getting stabilized, we'll do a bi-weekly call. Yeah.
That's
That's
great,
awesome.
man.
Yeah.
I mean, if people, I mean, it's crazy because once you acquire the property, there's a lot of work to acquire the property. Then the real work starts because you start implementing the business plan, these weekly calls, and exactly what you just mentioned, man. You gotta stay in communication with that property manager because that's the only way you're gonna know exactly what's going on with your property. Like whether you have to balance out, lease ups as compared to renovations, renewals, all that stuff, and
Yeah.
that's what separates a really, really good asset management manager. And that was a great point for sure.
And
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
if you're in a coastal area, you're probably just one hurricane away from going from bi-weekly calls to a daily call.
100%, 100%. You probably do multiple calls a week if there's a fire or if there's, like I said, a natural disaster. But yeah, you have to be very flexible to be able to get on a call whenever, because anything can happen at any time. So, and 100%, Anthony, like as an operator, you are only as good as your PM. You are only as good as your on-site. And so have that open line of communication with your on-site manager and have real-time information when anything goes off. That's super important because the quicker you can put out the fire before it spreads is the key, right? So, but asset management I feel like it's one of the most underutilized things. Like asset management's not sexy, right? And a lot of people get in this business just want to do acquisitions. But like you said, the real money is made through asset management, and it's tedious at times. But I believe that there's a lot of people out there teaching acquisitions. They teach how to buy the business. They don't teach how to run the business. So when you get in this, make sure you understand that the fun doesn't really start until you buy. Once you get the deal done, you close, that's where the real work begins for sure.
Absolutely, man. And as far as like growth or asset management, I know I think Rich, he had a post on LinkedIn earlier this week or last week, and he was talking about vertical integrations. Like how most successful operators seem to be vertically integrated.
Yeah.
Could you touch on that a little bit of like your experience with that, or maybe the direction you're going to as far as integrations?
Yeah. So, we've been working closely with some very, very high level individuals, and we're transitioning to vertically integrating ourselves. But yeah, so some of the most successful operators out there, they are vertically integrated. They in-house their property management, they in-house their construction team. But I think if you're able to, and you're in a good spot and you have a strong team to execute a vertically integrated business, it makes a world of a difference, because those third-party variables you have more control over at that point, right? You get to control the expenses, you get control your management company. You get control your projects, how fast or how slow your projects go. It's because it's all in-house. It's definitely not something it's not for everybody. And it's definitely not for somebody who I'm always going to treat myself as a beginner of real estate. But if you're fresh to real estate, definitely learn asset management, learn property management, learn all these fundamentals before you start thinking about vertically integrate, because there's a lot of things that are involved to vertically integrate. But I believe, once you start bringing these things in-house, you get to control more of the variables and mitigate more of the risk on any given asset you acquire, for sure.
Yeah, I think we've seen that like during COVID, just construction materials alone.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. That alone can ruin your best business plan. And we've experienced that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So this is solid stuff. And for our listeners that are out there that are new, you're gonna hear a common theme from Moses. It's relationship. He's probably dropped that term probably 3 or 4 times. And I say this on every single episode, and I'll continue to say it, but for our new listeners, there's a starting point and an end goal. Yeah. And the missing component in between is the people. You have Moses, building relationships with insurance guys, with brokers, current property managers, or even the owners of the apartment complex itself.
Yeah.
So planting the seeds, you may not do it overnight or within a 15-20 minute discussion, but at least be open to it and move with intent of building relationships, so that way you can grow with other people.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to ask stupid questions too, man. Just because you feel like it's a stupid question, it probably isn't, right? And in this day and age, and especially in this industry, if you don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to ask. You have team members, you have people on your team that they're there for a reason. I mean, don't ever feel like you have to know it all, and just be humble, because if not, real estate will humble you very quickly.
Very quick.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's I enjoy it. I enjoy real estate. It's been really fruitful for our lives. But it has its ups and downs, and it's just how well can you weather the storm? How many punches can you take and get back up? And in the commercial world, it's not competitive, it's collaborative. Single family is competitive. Commercial, I feel like it's collaborative. It's no longer, I'm trying to win this deal from this person. It's like, how can we do this deal together? Right. That's all it is. The whole watermelon reference, man, I'll never forget that, but it's literally what it is, man. It's a team sport. You're only as good as your team, and that's as far as you'll get.
Yeah, let's double click on that a little bit. So like, because you transition from single family to multifamily, for those that are, successful in wholesaling and flipping, much respect. I mean, hey, if you got to make your money somehow, but what about apartments really drew to it business wise?
The scalability for sure. And I don't know if you guys heard this term, but real estate is an ideal investment. So IDEAL, right? It's got the income aspect, depreciation, equity, appreciation, and leverage. And all those things are magnified when you get in the commercial world. And everything is, you have more checks, more doors under one roof, more checks. To be quite honest, it's a little bit easier to operate in my eyes. I feel like, commercial, you have more of a tolerance as far as risk goes. Even your lending is easier than the single family realm. So I don't want to say it's harder. It's not harder. It's just more details. Like I mentioned before, you pay closer attention to the details when you're buying, 5 doors, 10 doors, it's easier. It's all the same closing process. It's basically kind of the same management style. It's just more detail orientated with team. That was one of the big transitions I had. It was going from single family to multifamily. It was a dog eat dog mentality in the single family space. Whereas like I had to break out of that, like, oh, these guys are not my competitors. These guys are my partners. Like, find ways to work with people, build those relationships and try to fortify those relationships with anybody, with, like I said, like your vendors, your partners, your investors. Like, it's all collaborative. It's no longer you against everybody. It's, us against everybody. So yeah,
man, I love that, man. With all the stuff that you're doing, like right now that you're juggling with the different properties that you're managing, on the asset management side, how big does faith play a role in your success?
It's played a huge role. At the end of the day, I can only worry about what I can control, right? And if I can control the situation, yes, I'm going to take action on it. But things like natural disasters, fires, like, just roll with it, man. Just okay. We'll get through it. So I was recently told this stoic phrase, and it's called amor fati. Amor fati, and the meaning behind amor fati is like, great, let it happen. It's basically what it means. So whether it's good or whether it's bad, look at it as a positive. Great, let it happen, because the lessons are in the blessings, the blessings are in the lessons, right? The more lessons you have, whether they're good or bad, those are the things you can really like take away from it. It's like, so faith has played a huge role in my mind and my family's lives, because obviously I'm doing this for not just for myself. I'm doing this for the greater good. I'm doing this to build a better community. I'm doing this to help people get involved into real estate and to understand that there are alternatives to just your W-2. There are alternative investments besides your 401k, mutual funds, and all that stuff. But, trying to show people that there's ways. And so I just put my faith in everything, and I work my tail off, and things seem to come full circle always. As long as you put good energy out in the universe, you're going to get good energy back. So
Amen to that, man.
Yeah.
So as we're we're running short on time.
Yeah.
We just got just a few more questions. The first one is like, what does the painting of Moses look like 5 years from now?
Oh man. Man, that's a fantastic question. 5 years from now, giving back as much as possible, like literally trying to just give back. I do Rob Roselle, shout out to Rob Roselle. He does mission trips down in Mexico, and he does a fantastic job. He raises money for it. He gets helping hands out there building homes for people that don't have homes, families that literally live in dirt and rubble. And so just going out there, you realize, yeah, we maybe have built 4 homes that weekend, but why couldn't we build 10 homes or 15 homes, right? Was it the lack of raising money for it? Was it the lack of helping hands? So I want to be in a place in 5 years where I am solely focused on giving back to the community, right? I want to be a philanthropist. What can I do to make the community and the world a better place for just the future generations? Because, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world out there. And I think it's our duty as men is to create a safe environment for these kids to grow up in, to be challenged, to be smarter, to work harder, to be more successful in life. And it's kind of crazy to see that that's not the mantra I feel like it's going on. So in 5 years, I want to be as impactful as I possibly can to people.
That's man, that's so inspiring, Moses. I know I haven't been able to make the last 2. But the good thing is on the next one, which I believe is in April.
Oh yeah, we got 3 next year.
I'm rounding up my church congregation, so we're gonna come in as a posse. On
man.
This one.
We could always use helping hands for that, for sure. Because, like I said, it wasn't this last trip, but the trip before. One of my partners, Joe, he mentioned, he's like, man, it's sad. We did knock out 4 houses, but there was a 5th family that didn't get it because we didn't have enough help, right? Yeah. And that will always resonate with me, because why not? Why could we not build 10 houses that week at 15? And so that's our goal. That's our goal with, our company, is to get to a point where we can do 20 houses in a weekend, right? Because we have the friends, we have the family, we have the network, and we have the money to do it. So that's my 5-year goal for sure.
Just embedding that tithing into your business, man. I think, God returns it in amazing ways that you just won't even know.
Right. That's right. That's why we're all here, man, is to be a good service, be good servants.
Yep.
Right? That's all we're here for. Absolutely.
So the last set, man, we're Anthony and I, this is our lightning round. This is where we ask just like really random questions.
Okay.
So that way our listeners could get to know the unbuttoned up side, unprofessional side of Moses here. So the first one that I'll ask is, you're stuck on an island, but hey, you got your iPhone. But the only catch is you could only load up 1 album to listen to over and over again on an island. What is that album that you're going to play, that you can play over and over and over again and tolerate on an island by yourself?
Oh man, that's tough. So a musical album?
Yes.
Oh man.
Or it could be an artist.
Okay. That's a good question.
Can it be a podcast?
That's what I'm saying. Could it be a podcast? I'll say 9 Doors Down podcast.
Yeah, sure. You got to, man.
That's too easy. That's a default.
We don't have enough episodes. You can be bored real quick.
Man, I think I can't go down to artists because that's really hard for me, but I would go genre, man. I would probably do classical music or just old school hip hop.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah, old school hip hop. I was a big fan of Rakim, Souls of Mischief.
Oh, yeah.
No way, Moses. I did not know this about you, bro.
Yeah. So old school hip hop for sure. And classical music, man. There's something about classical music. It calms you a little bit, right? So if you're on an island, you're haywire, put some stuff on that calms you down, right? Yeah. Strategize. What am I going to get off this island?
I like to listen. I like to dabble into a little classical just to relax you, but it's also more of a linear listen.
Yes.
Right. Whereas hip hop, R&B, soul, funk, it's very, it's more cyclical.
Yeah.
But I totally get that. Great answer, man.
Yeah, can't go wrong old school hip hop, man. They don't make it like they used to.
Man, see, Moses knows the ledge with Rakim, dude. Know the ledge. All
Yeah.
right,
Awesome,
Anthony,
man.
your turn, brother.
Yeah. So my question is, if you had an ideal vacation, would it be tropical or in the mountains? And if so, where would it be?
Man, that's another good question. So I'm a mountain boy through and through. So like I grew up in Park City, Utah. It was all outdoors, mountain biking, skiing, all that good stuff, fly fishing. But my life has changed a little bit since I've met my wife, my daughter. I would probably say tropical now. Tropical, because that's what my wife loves. She loves sandy beaches. She loves good weather, warm weather. She doesn't do well in the cold. So,
That's funny. It's like it's
Yeah.
more work in the mountains, but then when it comes to tropical, it's just more relaxation. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
It's
I think our other guests. That's funny because you say that because they talked about it. If it was their wife's choice, now that I'm married, I got to do tropical.
Yeah. And I ain't complaining, man. There's sandy beaches and beautiful sunshine, and I enjoy that stuff too.
Hey,
Sure.
hey, don't forget, man. You gotta haul all those towels, those carts, all the toys.
Right.
There's still a lot of work to be done.
I gotta bring the wagon for my
The
daughter,
wagon?
all her toys.
Through the sand.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, that's a workout on its own. So
I love it.
All right,
good
man.
stuff.
All right, so very last question, Moses.
Yeah.
What is Moses' superpower?
Woo, man. My superpower to me is being an exceptional dad and husband. That is my superpower. I put my family first. Obviously I put God first. I put my family second, man. It's my superpower is always being there. Try to be a better understanding human being, listening more, talking less. But yeah, that's definitely my superpower is being an exceptional husband and a father for sure. Definitely.
Much respect. Much respect.
Awesome, man. Awesome.
Well, that's going to wrap it up for this episode with our special guest, Moses Lucero. And for everyone out there, thank you for tuning in to the 9 Doors Down show. This is John Lopez.
Anthony Pimentel.
And we out.
Peace.
Peace.
Thanks, guys.